obviously it's still the top story in the National Football League. And the 49ers, both in the form of GM John Lynch and head coach Kyle Shanahan, have deviated from what typically is the we don't talk about players under contract with other teams. Here is Shanahan from the Rich Eisen show earlier today talking about the question of whether the 49ers really did make a phone call, yes, a phone call last Wednesday night to the Packers inquiring about Aaron Rodgers. Here's Shanahan.
Is it any truth that you called the Packers upon hearing these rumors about Aaron Rodgers to see if that could work out potentially?
Yeah, the exact truth is I don't want to wake up the next day on Friday and see Aaron Rodgers, one of the best quarterbacks in this league, traded without doing any due diligence on it. So I just called Matt and asked him if there was anything to it. And Matt told me I'd be wasting my time if we had Lynch call. And so Lynch did not call anyone the next day. But, yes, I did reach out to Matt the night before and asked him if hey, man, I don't want to wake up the next day and see that Aaron was traded for something. I didn't at least look into it. And so that's what I did with Matt, and he gave me a very quick answer. So I didn't even tell John to call Goody. So I think that would have worked out, I guess. We were happy to get our guy, and hopefully it'll work out for them.
Matt, of course, is Matt LaFleur, who used to work with Kyle Shanahan. By the way, that photo is not from high school of Kyle Shanahan. That's from when he took the job with the 49ers, which tells you that coaching the 49ers takes a toll. Charean, it definitely takes a toll. It accelerates time as it has for Kyle Shanahan. But I hear that, and it meshes with my theory that this was all orchestrated to the point where the word was leaked out to the 49ers that there's reason to inquire. And I think the Rodgers camp let it be known to the 49ers there's reason to think he could be traded. That's what Shanahan said. He didn't want to wake up Friday morning and see that he'd been traded. They were hearing that something was cooking, so they were the ones to reach out, and then that allowed Rodgers camp to leak that they reached out. I think it was very orchestrated and calculated, and the 49ers were pawns in this effort to pull the ripcord on the 4 days now and counting of Aaron Rodgers news.
Yeah, and Mike, you look back on it, the 49ers could have had Aaron Rodgers back in the day, and they chose Alex Smith instead of Aaron Rodgers, and now here we sit that they admit they had interest in trading for him, and it very well makes sense that they could have been pawns in this whole thing, and I don't know where this ends, but it's interesting, all these twists and turns that we keep hearing over the last 4 days, which really, frankly, hijacked the draft, because I kept hearing Aaron Rodgers, even as we're hearing Trevor Lawrence go number 1, Zach Wilson go number 2, even Trey Lance number 3 to the 49ers. All anyone's talking about is Aaron Rodgers and what's going to happen with Aaron Rodgers, Mike.
Yeah, you're absolutely right, and I believe it was all planned. I thought it was revenge served more frozen than tundra by Aaron Rodgers to have that all come out
Good line.
The first day of the draft. And I wrote it earlier today. I'm just working my material. I'm seeing how it sounds. I saw how it reads. I wanted to hear how it sounds. The reality is, and this is something I was talking to Sims about earlier today, my understanding is, and I haven't confirmed this yet, haven't written it at PFT, but there were 3 trips made by one or more of the Packers' brain trusts to see Aaron Rodgers this offseason. I don't know when, and I don't know that it was definitely 3, but what I've heard so far is it was 3. Maybe it was more, maybe it was less, and I don't know when. But when you're taking the coach and or the GM and or the team CEO from Green Bay to California on multiple occasions, and yes, you can multitask, you can work, it's still a disruption and a distraction to your routine, all because Aaron Rodgers commanded their presence so they could work through whatever they needed to work through, and they haven't worked through it yet. And then on top of that, as they're getting ready for the draft and they're settled in for the draft, he drops this bomb on them. And even though they knew there were issues, obviously, the idea that all this came out and they had to deal with it during the draft, that Brian Gutekunst has to deal with the report that Rodgers wants him fired, has to answer questions about the report that Rodgers wants him fired. I mean, this is the busiest time for a GM between the draft and signing undrafted free agents. I just think that the Packers have a right to be as upset with Rodgers as Rodgers is with the Packers for what they did to him last year in drafting Jordan Love without telling him that it was coming. So they're even now. And where do we go from here, Charean? I don't think anybody's going to bend. And one of the realities of not having an owner in Green Bay is there isn't anyone who can show up and say, fix this. And I think this is going to linger. This is going to give us things to talk about and write about for weeks to come. I don't see it ending any time before training camp opens.
Yeah, and let's break it down, Mike, because it does appear that both sides have their heels dug in, right? And they don't seem willing to give. What would prompt Rodgers to change his mind? I don't see anything at this point. To me, it almost sounds this is too far gone, that not even an extension, not more money, not the job security that he perhaps wanted earlier in the offseason is enough to get him to change his mind. So what would prompt the Packers to change their position? Is it Rodgers not showing up for the offseason program, for training camp, for week one of the season opener? Where does this go from here? Because both teams seem so dug in at this point, Mike, that it's a matter of who gives in first.
I think it's the mindset that the Packers have always applied to their players. It's something that Peter King pointed out, dates back to Ron Wolf. We run the team, you just work here. Don't bother us with wanting to be involved in personnel decisions. Don't bother us with wanting to be involved in managing the team. You just work here. You worry about yourself. We'll worry about us. And, hey, look around the NFL. What happens? The players play until the point where they're no longer good enough to play and they're replaced by someone else. And the wheels keep turning for the NFL via its 32 franchises. That's how it goes. And that attitude, it used to work. Doesn't work anymore. Not with truly great players. Not with players who are realizing they have leverage even when they don't have a contract that has expired or a franchise tag dance like the one that Kirk Cousins had in Washington and the one that Dak Prescott had in Dallas that resulted in a record-setting contract. Rodgers has leverage even though he's under contract for 3 more years, and he's not afraid to use it. And the reality is, I don't think this blows up last week if Rodgers hasn't given the Packers every chance to give him what he wants. And, I heard last week he wants Patrick Mahomes' money. Well, that would explain why he doesn't have a new contract, because my understanding is they have offered him an extension, not just a restructuring, but an extension. Now, the question is, how much of their flexibility does that extension take away? If it continues to be 1 year at a time, it really doesn't solve the problem. See, he wanted them to essentially turn back time, to make it the way it was before Jordan Love was drafted. If that means a contract that means Aaron Rodgers is going nowhere because of the cap hit that would result if they traded him, fine. If that means trading Jordan Love, fine. If that means firing Brian Gutekunst and resetting, fine. I mean, I don't know what specifically he wanted, other than at the end of the day, he wanted to feel like they were sorry for what they had done and they had made amends to him in some form or fashion for what they had done. So, okay, pay me like Patrick Mahomes and tie me to the team for the next 3 or 4 years. Well, we can't do that. Okay, trade Jordan Love. Well, we can't do that. Well, fire Brian Gutekunst. Well, we can't do that. I'm not saying he asked for Jordan Love to be traded, but Charles Robinson did report that he wants Gutekunst to be fired. And the Packers aren't going to do any of that, Charean. So, do they sit back and wait and see if he's serious, like the Texans were kind of doing with Deshaun Watson? I mean, they've had 3 months to process this. So I think they want to see how far he'll push it, because I think they believe deep down he's petrified of Packers fans turning on him. That's why one of the things he said to Mike Tirico on Saturday was he loves Green Bay, he loves the fans, he loves the organization. He just has issues with the current management of it. I think he wants to hold on to that fan base and not become what Brett Favre was when Brett Favre landed with the Vikings.
Yeah, and Brett Favre's reputation with Packers fans is now revived, right? He repaired that. So maybe it's not quite what it once was, but I think he repaired that somewhat. But let's back up a little bit, Mike. I think we've seen this movie before, at least one that's similar to it. And I go back, you hit on it, you talk about the Packers treating him as an employee. Like, we value you as an employee, but you're not part of management. We make all the decisions here. We do what we want to do. This reminds me so much of Carson Palmer's situation in Cincinnati, right? And he retired, And they finally figured out he was serious. They drafted Andy Dalton, and they said, all right, he's serious. Let's trade him. And they traded him to the Cardinals, and they moved on. I think this could play out the exact same way. But here's the problem, Mike. You've waited so long if you're going to trade Aaron Rodgers that let's say he sits out and sits out and sits out. Now all these teams have addressed their quarterback needs. Yeah, you're talking about the Raiders and Broncos still would be interested. I get it. But you're not going to be in that perhaps that war that you would have been in before the draft because a lot of teams have addressed their quarterback issues. So if he gets into the season and he's still on the roster and he's not showing up, I mean, at that point, what do you do with the Packers? I think at that point you have to trade him.
You know, I think you're secretly a Raiders fan. You know why I think that?
Why?
Because I think, like every Raiders fan, you're pretending that the Raiders didn't actually give up multiple first-round picks to get Carson Palmer because you just glossed right over that and went straight to the Cardinals.
I did gloss. You're right. I forgot about that. You're exactly right.
But Mike Brown's attitude in Cincinnati was let him sit, let him rot. I don't care. And Mike Brown, one of the few owners that would do that. Fine. He don't want to be here? Fine. I don't care. I'll draft his replacement, and he can sit and he can rot. And that's what the Packers – even though they don't have a traditional owner, more on that in a second, but I think that's the mindset they have. And the Bengals just got flat out lucky. Jason Campbell, then the quarterback of the Raiders, breaks his collarbone 2 days before the trade deadline. And whoop, they slap it together. Hugh Jackson wants Carson Palmer, multiple first-round picks, and he gets Carson Palmer, and the Bengals get a way out of that mess because otherwise I think Palmer, who knows how long he would have not played football. And I think that with Rodgers, as he's getting so close to the end, I think that's part of where the Packers are called his bluff. You really going to sit out, Aaron, half a year, all a year? You're really going to do that when you got 4 years left? Father Time is still going to gain ground on Aaron Rodgers even if he doesn't play this year. He doesn't get to postpone his full career by a year. He's going to be a year older, and at some point the wheels are going to come off, and I think that's one of the reasons why the Packers will dig in. And I really do believe on this point of not having a traditional owner. You know, in many respects it's good that you don't have somebody who can roll out of bed, catch a wild hair, be upset that they lost a game, be upset that they missed the playoffs, and turn everything upside down and prevent continuity and have a bunch of buyouts, and they fire this coach, they fire this coach. You can't make the owner happy. But in a case like this, there really isn't anyone who can say, enough. I'm fixing this. I'm fixing this now. Here's what I'm going to do. And I have the authority to do it, and I'm willing to do it, and no one can ever hold me accountable for it. See, Mark Murphy's the only one who's got the power to fix this, but he can be held accountable for it later if it blows up, if it's a mess, if they dig in, and Rodgers never plays again. They never get anything out of him in return, and that's just it. And it's like, well, you could have gotten something for Aaron Rodgers, could have gotten some draft picks, could have done something. Or if they trade him and he ends up being great somewhere else and they beat the Packers in the playoffs or in the Super Bowl, Murphy eventually could be looking at losing his job if he misplays this. So I think that's going to cause him to take the easy, safe, conservative route that doesn't involve doing something revolutionary, that doesn't involve doing something controversial, and he's going to take his chances because however this plays out, it is going to be potentially held against him, and it is going to affect how much longer he's the CEO of the Packers, and that's why it's important to have an owner who doesn't have to worry about that because as Jed York once said, you can't fire the owner, Charean.
Yeah, you have options here, Mike, but you need somebody to pick that option. It's almost like the Packers have buried their head in the sand. They haven't flown out there, but it's obvious, or it should be obvious to the Packers' brain trust that Aaron Rodgers wants what Aaron Rodgers wants, and we think at this point that he wants out of Green Bay. So burying your head in the sand and saying, well, we're just going to wait for him to show up. What if he doesn't show up? So as an owner, you can fix that. You can decide what the course of action is, and they almost seem like they're not picking any course of action except, hey, let's just sit on our hands. Let's just wait. At some point, he'll show up and we'll go on and he'll play this season as a defending MVP. And then we can decide after the season what we do with him. Well, if he doesn't show up, that changes everything for the Packers. And again, it may be too late for the Packers to get what they could have gotten for Aaron Rodgers.
Receiver Devontae Adams seems to be accepting where this all may be heading. He tweeted, you got to appreciate what you got while you've got it. Maybe that's a message to himself. because that means he's accepting that Aaron Rodgers isn't going to be there, or maybe it's a message to the Packers and their fans. You got to appreciate Aaron Rodgers while you have it, because maybe Davante Adams has come to the conclusion, like many others have, that Rodgers will never play for the Packers again. And I think that it would be so awkward at this point for Rodgers to come back. You can't just pull the Steve Urkel, did I do that, and walk through the door and act like everything's fine. That's not the way Aaron Rodgers is wired. He holds a grudge like no one else. He's not going to come back now. It's a matter of principle for him. Now, right or wrong, it's a matter of principle. He played along with them for a year. They trade up to take Jordan Love instead of investing those assets in making a Super Bowl team good enough to get to the Super Bowl instead of fall short. Again, he's an MVP, best player in the league. He gave him a chance to make amends. He gave him a chance to make what once was described when Donovan McNabb was benched in Philadelphia in 2008 in that offseason as a financial apology. Something to make it right with Aaron Rodgers. And they didn't. They had 3 months to do it, and they didn't. And now they're playing high-stakes chess. And I think they're banking on Aaron Rodgers finding a way to come back, because they believe he won't hold out. He won't give up a year of his remaining career. And one thing he could do that would make it the most entertaining, if he did go back and just be kind of like Terrell Owens in Philadelphia in 2005, although not to that degree, but go back and just be an employee. Hey, I'm doing the bare minimum. I'm not showing up early. I'm not staying late. I'm not coming for any of the voluntary stuff. I'm not going to come in on my off day and help get the game plan ready. I just work here. You're going to treat me like I just work here? Then, guys, I just work here. Don't expect anything from me over and above the bare minimum, period. I'm not going to exert leadership. I'm not doing anything. I'm just going to call the plays that you call. I'm going to throw the football to the open man, and I'm going to keep doing that over and over again, because if you guys don't care enough to put together a championship team, why should I continue to strive for that goal if we're not on the same page about trying to get there?
I do know this, Mike. They better be getting Jordan Love ready. They better be doing whatever they can to get Jordan Love ready to play. And I think if they thought Jordan Love was ready to play, that maybe they would have already moved on Aaron Rodgers, and they haven't done that. So whatever they have to do, this guy could be your starting quarterback this year. And we joked about that this week, over the weekend, when they drafted Amari Rodgers. Hey, Jordan Love has a new receiver. Hey, Jordan Love has a new center. But we'll see how this thing plays out. But they better be getting him ready just in case, Mike.
Hi, I'm Mike Tirico, and thanks for watching. Make sure to hit subscribe for the latest news and highlights from NBC Sports.